How are you all doing today? If you're watching this, you know who I am, so I don't have to really introduce myself. So yeah, you know who I am. It's all good. We're gonna play DEFCON today. You're gonna watch me play DEFCON, and we're gonna have a lot of fun. Um, Basically, DEFCON is a game of nuclear war, and it's a game where, as it says here in the corner, everybody dies. Isn't that great? Nuclear war, it's interesting. It's kind of a thing that's like extremely serious and should not be taken lightly at all, and yet now it's a game. And what I like to think is um, that the music is loud. Um, okay. The music is very ambient, but it can get a little too ambient sometimes. Um, so so basically, it is a game of nuclear war, and I like to think that part of the purpose of this game is to bring some of these issues about nuclear proliferation and nuclear war to light to a general audience. I don't know if it's successful in that, but that's what I hope. So, anyway, let me explain like the general concept of this game. So, basically, you play essentially a continent. You don't really play like individual countries, but you play like a continent. Like you could be like Africa, or you could be South or North America, or Asia, or Europe, or Eurasia. Um, but basically, there's several unit types available, and they each have different purposes and different strengths and weaknesses. You have to place them. It's DEFCON 4 right now, which basically means that nothing is happening. But what happens is you notice the clock is ticking down, and as that hits 0, it's going to go from. It's actually, I'm sorry, we're in DEFCON 5, and so DEFCON 4 is going to happen in about 3 minutes and 48 seconds. And then once DEFCON 4 happens, then that means that you can do more things. Specifically, enemy units become visible on radar. So let's talk about radar. The thing about this game is that you can't actually see anything if it's outside of your radar range. This is as if you're like a commander and all you have is essentially radar. So there's basically, if you don't have radar, if you can't see it with radar, you can't see it. So you want your radar to cover as much enemy territory as possible. And playing as Russia against Asia, that's pretty easy because they share a really long border. So we're going to put a radar right there, and you see how big of a radius that has. So we're going to see everything that happens, like essentially in East Asia. We're going to put one right here near Mongolia. We're going to put one down here, keep an eye on the Middle East. And we're going to put one... I really want some up here. They're not really covering enemy territory, but it's going to cover the flight path from Asia into Russia. Flight paths are pretty important in this game, actually. And then we want to keep like one more radar here just for backup. So then we have silos. Silos are probably the most important part of this game. Silos have two purposes. They launch nuclear missiles, and they also shoot down enemy nuclear missiles. So where you put them is very important. Luckily, you know, as the Russians, most of my population is like right here. There's a couple over here, but the majority of people are right here. So we can put most of our it says right now the silo is in air defense mode. And so if a missile comes over, or if an enemy bomber comes over, it's going to shoot at it. Now, when they fire nuclear missiles, they have to leave air defense mode, and so they're very vulnerable. We're also going to put some fighter bases. They launch, these air bases launch both fighters and bombers. And then over here in the ocean, we're going to put some battleships and some carriers. And yeah, put a bunch of those because they get blown up really easily. And we're also going to put nuclear submarines right off the coast of Asia. Okay, so the critical thing to understand about this game is that this is really more than nuclear war even. It's really a game of timing. The mechanics in this game are essentially all about timing, and you become really, really good at this game by having really excellent timing. And I'll explain a little bit more about that in just a minute. We're going to hit DEFCON 4 here in about 12 seconds or so. And so once we hit DEFCON 4, we're going to be able to see enemy installations that are within our radar range. And 4. Okay, so we're in DEFCON 4. We can see the bad guys. That's what I named them. We can see they've got some radar dishes here. They got some air bases, and we got a silo right there. We got some radars, some air bases. Okay, so so we can see most of what they have, but we can't see the rest of their silos. They're usually in here somewhere when the AI is doing it. So we don't know, where they're at. And that's bad because they can launch. The idea is you want to try and destroy silos and air bases before they can launch nukes at you, because your air defense is frankly it's kind of shit. It's just shit. I mean, for every 10 missiles that the enemy launches at you, you can expect to maybe shoot down like 4, maybe. So yeah, you want to try and destroy the enemy nukes while they're still on the ground, if possible. And if it's not possible, then you're boned. Right now there's no actual fighting going on. The fighting doesn't really happen until DEFCON 3, which comes in about 4 minutes. But we can go ahead and speed up. Basically what's happening right now is that everyone's just kind of positioning themselves. So, okay, now we're in DEFCON 3. Now, if there's enemy naval units right here, they'll start fighting with mine. The other thing, while I'm in DEFCON 3, I can start sending like fighter jets to attack the enemy. Fighter jets don't really do anything except fight other fighters, so I think that they're kind of useless. I mean, they're kind of effective against some ships, but not a whole lot. So really, I'm just going to switch over to bombers. I don't know if you just saw what I did, but basically you can either launch fighters or bombers. Okay, you can't launch both at the same time. And basically every option you have in this game has a cooldown. And so like if I want to switch back to fighters, it's a 120-second cooldown to launch fighters again. If I want to launch bombers, it's a 120-second cooldown. If I want to activate the silo to launch nuclear missiles, if I'm not mistaken, it's like a 200-second cooldown. So basically, and when it's cooling down, when it's in the cooldown mode, it can't do anything else. It can't shoot down missiles. It can't defend your cities. Same thing for the aircraft carriers over here. Right now they're in fighter launch mode. That's the default. I'm going to switch to bomber launch. or I could switch to anti-submarine, which kind of attacks the enemy submarines if they're in the vicinity, and you'll notice that has a 240-second cooldown. So essentially, the your decisions about when to do things in this game, and when to launch and when not to launch, the timing becomes extremely important. Here's some enemy ships that are just now coming into radar range. You'll notice that the carriers and the battleships, they also have their own radar. Carriers have the best radar outside of radar stations. These fighters and bombers, they also have, you can't really see it because it's swallowed up by the other, by the much larger radar range. But fighters and bombers also have a much smaller radar range. What we're going to do is we're going to launch some fighters to attack these enemy ships, and just kind of hope for the best. Fighters are kind of lame. They just kind of they get killed a lot. You actually have an infinite number of fighters, but your bombers are limited. That's another important aspect to this game, is that your resources are very, very limited. This is a nuclear war, so it's going to last a matter of minutes. And when your silo is destroyed, when your radar stations are destroyed, they're destroyed. They're gone. They don't come back. When your cities are destroyed, they're gone. They don't come back. The other thing I should mention is that these structures have different weaknesses. Radar stations are very weak. They can be destroyed by a single nuke. Air bases are a little bit stronger. It takes 2 nukes to destroy an air base. And silos are the strongest. It takes 3 nukes to fully destroy a silo. But every time a nuke hits a silo, it destroys some of the nuclear missiles. Each silo holds 10 nuclear missiles for a total of 60 nukes in all of your silos. And each air base holds 5 bombers and 5 extra nukes, so that the bombers can launch their nukes and then come back to the air base and reload once. The carriers hold 2 bombers each. Each one comes preloaded with a nuke, and then they have 4 nukes each. So you can see right here, my ships and my planes are attacking their ships and planes out here in the Pacific. And it's kind of slow. We can speed it up a little bit. We can speed it up a lot. So far I'm doing pretty well. You do want to destroy their ships when you get a chance. We're in DEFCON 2 now. Nothing really special happens in DEFCON 2. It's just it's 10 minutes long, give or take, and it's basically just waiting for DEFCON 1. You can't actually fire nukes until you get to DEFCON 1. And then the way that the game is scored is that it's essentially scored by how many millions of people die. So your score, you basically, right now, both sides have a score of 0. And as you lose people, that detracts from your score. And as you kill the other guy's people, that adds to your score. So like if I were to bomb Tehran right here, and let's say 3 million people died, that would add a score of 3 to mine and take away 3 from the other guy. The way that nukes work is that when they hit a city, they kill half the people that live there. So Tokyo has 15.6 million people. If I were to hit Tokyo with a nuke, they would lose, roughly 8 million people. And then so the population would then be 8 million. And then if I hit it again, they would lose 4 million people. And so on and so forth. Like every time you hit a city, it loses half of its population, which is terrifying. This game really made me think a lot about the American bombing of Japan at the end of World War II, and how I you know, when I was a kid, I was very ambivalent about it. I kind of felt like, because my granddad was actually in the war, and he lost several brothers in the war fighting against Japan. And so as a kid, I was raised sort of with the, and you'll notice my silos are attacking his planes right now. I was raised to sort of believe that this was like a just thing, that, you know, the Japanese were just bad people and we had to stop them. And I think over time, um, and not just because of this game, but I mean, the game has helped me to see that. Okay, so I'm sorry, we're in DEFCON 1 now, so nukes are go. So I'm gonna launch a bomber at first. I'm going to attack their eyes. That sounds so terrible. I'm going to attack their radar stations, because if it's difficult for them to see, that's a good thing. But I started learning more about nuclear war and exactly what it means to have nuclear war. And real nuclear war is actually nothing like this. This is sort of nuclear war from the perspective of a commander. Um, but it's, in reality, um, a nuclear war would actually mean, like, if we were to actually have one, it would just mean that, like, every person that you love, every person that you care about will die. And it's not even like a question, like maybe they'll be okay, maybe some people will get out and some people will be okay, but it's literally just like, just every single person that you love will die. Um, and not just die like they're dead, but just in the most horrible way you can imagine. Like, they'll literally just catch on fire, like wherever they're standing, they'll just catch on fire. You know, like you were just sitting at the HEB a minute ago, but now you're on fire. Um, that's how you die in a nuclear war. Um, and it occurred to me that, like, I can't really, I can't ever justify that. I can't, I can't, I can't say, you know, it's okay to light some little kid on fire as long as you have a really good reason. You know, because as a kid, I was taught, you know, we had good reasons. We had our reasons for doing what we did. And as I get older, I realize that there are some actions that you can engage in for which there's just there's no good reasons. Um, so yeah, so we're in the middle of a nuclear war right now. No deaths yet. I've destroyed some radars. They destroyed two of mine, and we'll be back later with more of this horrific tragedy.